Hi, welcome to Wednesday. First thing I want to get out before I forget is this Friday, the 10th of January, there's a full moon. It peaks at 2:21 p.m. It's also a lunar eclipse. Now that is Eastern Standard Time. That's our time here. If you have earthbound spirits in your house, this is the week you are going to feel it. They have more energy this week anyway, the week working up to a full moon. But being a lunar eclipse, it is really, they're going to have a lot of energy. So just so you're aware of it, just so you know. Now, I got a bunch of letters from this last talk last week. People want to know how I can look at their photos and put them on here so you folks can see them. If you want to send me photos, they have to be film, not digital. I need the negative, and I need it written on the back of the picture, your name, your address, who you are, and permission to use it. That's the only way that I will show the pictures. There have been so many letters that came in about children that we are going to definitely do this again next week, Wednesday. Plenty of pictures too. And it's interesting, the questions, there's a lot of similarity from the questions from some of the people that are sending them to me. You know, the concern about their children and what they're doing. So let's go through some of the letters, and then I have some pictures to show you. This is from Susie in Florida. Both my children have described seeing a little boy with curly hair in our home. They both experienced seeing him. Neither kids were scared by the little boy. They were actually pretty matter-of-fact about it. Does this ghost need to be dealt with, or can we leave it since the children seem to not see or feel it after the age of 3? Okay, before I go any further, it doesn't stop at 3. This can continue forever. I mean, who's to say it's going to stop? Usually around 7 and 8, they stop talking about it, however. But I don't know where you got that, the age of 3, that it'll stop after that. No, actually, a 3-year-old can really start verbalizing a whole lot better, and you'll probably get a whole lot more information after 3 than before 3. When my daughter had her tonsils out at age 4, she became terrified of our basement playroom. Shh, don't make a sound or the monster will know we're here. And she would tiptoe around the house, scared to pick up a toy. My husband says that it was probably the pain medication she was on. Can medication bring out a heightened awareness of ghosts? If a child is more relaxed because of the meds they're taking, that's a possibility. That works for adults too, because that's mostly the time that an adult will see an earthbound spirit, is when they're dropping off to sleep or first waking up first thing in the morning when you're sort of fuzzy. And so, yeah, that could mean that. It would worry me that she's afraid of the basement because of a monster. Listen to your children. If she is that afraid, then definitely something is going on, especially if it continues after she's done taking her medications. Okay, this one is from Tony in Colorado, and this, I've run across this. We brought 3 adopted children home from Russia. We adopted our children from a small village there. Do you think that the kids are seeing their biological parents that are coming to visit them? They seem to be looking at somebody all the time. They don't seem to be afraid. Excuse me. They don't seem to be afraid, but I'm just wondering if this is who it could be. I have run across that before where people have adopted babies or children, and if the biological parents are dead, that could be somebody that is in the house checking up on their kids, which would be understandable. Just because you adopt a kid from a foreign country doesn't mean that if somebody's attached to that child or its biological parent, that it can't follow them, to here in the States. That's absolutely a possibility. I would have no way of knowing from a letter if that's who it could be. But there were like 3 letters addressing this about adopted children. And yeah, that absolutely, that could be something that's going on. This one is from Melody. Number of people ask this question also. How do you know that your child is actually seeing ghosts or just has an incredible imagination? Plus, can ghosts travel from one house to a new house? Answer that first. Absolutely. There is absolutely no reason why they will not follow you from one house to another, especially if the ghost really likes you guys or has figured out how to push your buttons. If they're getting all the energy that they need from you, yes. Careful with the questions that you ask your child if they bring up a ghost to you. 2 things. You don't want to push them. You don't want, every time they come downstairs for breakfast in the morning, you go, so who did you see in your room last night? Was there anybody in your closet? Or when you were down the basement, did you see anybody down there? You know what? Give kids an inch, they're going to take a mile, especially if they see that has your undivided attention. They talk about a ghost, say, oh, well, what can you tell me about him? See what the child says. Think very carefully how they're answering this. And think back, did they watch something on TV that could have given them that idea? Are they in kindergarten or first grade where kids are talking about ghosts, especially around Halloween? That's a pretty common topic for children to be talking about. So you have to sort of weed it out. One of the big things to know if they're telling the truth is this. Do they have a lot of ear, nose, throat, and upper respiratory problems? Because there's going to be an energy drain on children also. And that is the weakest part of their body, which means that's going to be affected the most. 1 round of meds doesn't take care of the flu or the cold or the strep. You have to have 2 rounds. So just be aware of what's going on. The other thing that you can do is mark it on your calendar. What section of the month do they seem to hear or feel or be scared? If it is like in the week we are now, the week working up to a full moon, that could also be an indication that something is in the house with the kids. Another thing that you can figure out too is, some kids are really destructive. I mean, you give them a brand new toy and within 20 minutes it's broken. Other kids can have the same toy for 15 years. If you think your child is just a really destructive child and breaks their toys or snaps their crayons on purpose or throws away their puzzle pieces, sometimes if the earthbound spirit is in the house with your children, it's probably going to be a child. It could be that spirit that is destroying your children's toys. There was a ghost in one house, a little boy that didn't like. He hung out with the little boy that was alive, but he didn't like the little boy's sister. In the middle of the night, he'd go in her bedroom and rip off her doll's heads and rip off her arms and scribble on her coloring books. he didn't like his sister. He didn't like his own sister when he was alive, so he was taking it out on this little girl. And normally the mother will wake up in the morning and go, why did you rip off her head? Or why did you do that to your coloring books? Well, I didn't do it, so then you blame your son. He must have did it. Not all the time. It could definitely be a destructive little ghost child in the house that is doing this. My 5-year-old daughter has spoken of ghosts in the house. According to her, there is at least one child that is very scary and growls at her. Now, I believe I've done a good job of not dismissing what they see as nightmares, but also not making too big of a deal about it, which is what I just explained. However, lately, the anxiety about the ghost seems to be increasing. She's not sleeping well. I have asked the ghost to leave. That's your first mistake. Don't talk to them. All you're doing is giving them more energy, especially if they realize that you know they're there. I've smudged the house, and if you're doing it every 2 weeks and not missing any place in the house, every closet, the crawl spaces, the attic, you're doing it correctly. But it still continues. So I'm guessing you're not smudging quite right, and again, stop talking to them. What can I do to give her some peace of mind? Smudge correctly. Have an ordained priest or minister come in and bless the house. These are a couple things that you can absolutely do. Here are some pictures, and I actually think I have this picture business figured out. This is a little boy that was always afraid to go down his basement and play. But they were having a birthday party down there, and that's where the party was going to be. So he was fine to be down there with everybody else. But they took pictures of the birthday boy. And again, I have the faces blackened out on this picture. That's not the ghost. I did that. But as you can see, look at all the around the bottom of the picture by his legs. Look at what looks like a mist, a fog. This is what he was afraid of down his basement. 2 days after this picture, I went and I cleared the house out, and he was fine, totally fine. This little guy that's in this picture, sick all the time. The mother it was from one thing to another. He was just always sick. And this was what was messing with this little guy. Can you see all the mist up in the corner by the ceiling? Look how big that is. He's just a little guy. That just aggravates me when spirits mess with kids. You don't like kids? Go to a house where there's no children. This one, her mother was absolutely convinced that her daughter had the best imagination ever. She could play in her room for hours with her dolls and her teddy bears and have tea parties and talk to all her friends. And she was absolutely certain that this was all in her child's mind. Till she took this picture. And this is what was next to her. That big white streak. That definitely is an earthbound spirit. That was taken care of also. We found out who she was. It was a little girl ghost messing with this little girl. Clear the house. And the little girl was actually a little upset because her friend left. Kids are good. Kids can absolutely see them. Now we've got a bunch of letters next week referring to kids again, and because there's so many letters, I'm going to go ahead and do kids again. If you have a question that didn't seem to be answered this time, get a letter off to me. Remember, I don't look at Facebook. I don't see any questions that are on a computer. Nothing. You've got to write a letter. It's the only way that I can answer your questions. And last bit of information, on Saturday, January 25th, I will be at La Casa Bella Party Center, and I got it wrong last week. It's Oakwood Village, not Orange. They both start with O. I just messed up a little. The doors open at 5:30. Dinner is like an hour later, and their food there is excellent. And the talk is after that. And according to their flyer, it's pre-ticket sale only. So get hold of them or go to my website, which is mariannewinkowski.com. The information is on there on how you can get to it. So we'll talk again next Wednesday. And again, if you have questions you need answered, get them in the mail. Thank you so much. Have a great week.